In this video, I'm going to do a deep dive of the financial results for January 2025 for Archi Demo Co. The holiday hangovers are in the rear view, the kids are heading back to school, and all the projects are coming along nicely. There's been a lot going on since Christmas, but it hasn't been a great month in January, but year to date we're still tracking slightly ahead of budget. Anyway, sit back, take a front row seat as we put the profit metrics framework over the top of everything and work out what's going on. The profit metrics framework provides a structured and strategic overlay so you don't miss anything when you're trying to figure out what's going on with the business. It enables us to answer three very important questions. Are we on track to meet our target? If not, why aren't things going to plan? And where are things heading in the future? But before we can get to that point, before we can even start doing our analysis, there is a bunch of things that we need to check, a bunch of work that needs to be done in the background before we can be satisfied that our results have accounting integrity and are correct. That's important because you'll never be able to work out if you're on track if you don't know where you are now. And nothing derails a board meeting quicker than reports you can't rely on. The first step is to make sure we're happy that the balance sheet is bulletproof. And after that, there's a bunch of reports we can go through to understand the relative performance in the P&L. Finally, once we're comfortable with the actual results, we want to have a good look at our forecast to give us comfort that we're going to hit our sales target, have the right amount of people to deliver the work, and we're not going to run out of cash. Once all this work's done, we'll be in a great position to have an insightful strategic discussion in the boardroom about our future goals and decide what we're going to do to keep things on track. Without having all this information and having confidence that it's right, you simply can't have these discussions. Okay, let's get into it. So the first thing is to make sure that the balance sheet is bulletproof before we can be confident in any of the other numbers that we see. And we do that by doing balance sheet reconciliations. And we go through every line item on the balance sheet and verify it. We prove up or substantiate these balances by tying things back to source documents. And there's a couple of areas that are a little bit different because they're integrated with the general ledger. Things like the bank reconciliations, but we'd check them out. The aged trade debtors and receivables. We'd go in and we'd look for the aging of those and try and understand what's going on and what impact they'll have on our cash flow. Look for any stale stuff and if it needs to be written off. Another area like that is the fixed assets. And not only do we check the written down value is tied up with the fixed asset module, but also we want to check the year-to-date depreciation has been booked correctly into the P&L. And then the other ones, we've got things like prepayments where we can we look at that. It's like software licenses, subscriptions, PI insurance. We've got our loans, our director's loans. An important note here was Director 2 wanted his $125,000 repaid. There's enough cash flow for it, so we've programmed that in to be $50,000 in February and the balance $75,000 in March. Director 1 owes $105,000 through his Div 7A loan, and we've scheduled that in to be repaid as part of the dividend process at the end of June. We go through and we've got loans and everything on here. Provisions for staff leave, they're tied back to payroll reports. There's a bonus provision there for the end of the year. Accrued expenses. And we go through every single one of these line items and do a reconciliation for it. And finally, we need to work our way through the work in progress by reviewing the time and billing and job costing reports to identify anything that we've earned and not billed or forward billed and haven't yet earned. When we're doing this review, we just need to know what's going on with these projects. So we worked down Smith Street. We actually didn't progress the percentage complete. So there was a bit of tidying up to be done on the billing here. Phase 1's complete. And phase 2 is about to start in February. And we'll look at the forecast shortly. It's really important that that thing gets off and going early in February. But where we've been really hurt in the last month is on the Bunyip Hills Hospital. The percentage complete hasn't progressed. We've we've done a little bit of tidying up on the billing, but we've burnt about $45,000 in getting to this point. If we're only at 85% complete this month, it means we weren't last month. So the overall position of the job last month was probably overstated by about 40 grand. That's caught up with us. That's the job costing. The WIP's come down from 150 down to 102. There it is listed here in yellow by job. And now once we're happy with everything in the balance sheet, we can trust and rely on the P&L. Now, I've said this before, it's really easy to fly off on tangents and go down rabbit holes chasing after small things. So before we immerse ourselves in that sort of detail, we actually need to just review everything at a high level or a summary level first. You have to remember, this isn't an exercise of finding out why we used more imaginary pens and pencils or A4 paper than we originally budget. It's about understanding what's just happened and how that affects our long-term goals. And to make things a bit easier, I've colour-coded stuff. So pink's the actual, green's the forecast, orange is the original budget, and purple's the revised budget or the reforecast amount. So the first of those summary level reports, so we can figure out where things are at now. So that's the actual versus budget for the month and year to date. And we can see that we're about $48,000 down on our monthly budget. Year to date, we're slightly ahead still. And we touched on this when we did our WIP review, that Bunyip Hills hadn't progressed beyond 85% despite us having done about $45,000 worth of work last month. And that's affected our ability to earn value or earn money. So my gut instinct is that this result is really a reflection of last month being a bit over-optimistic catching up with us. Now, we rely on the percentage complete given to us by the project leaders, but those figures should be supported by a cost to complete calculation. The next thing we want to look at, we're going to just quickly look towards the future and say, well, look, how's things looking for the full year? So we started off at the 5.016 for our budget, 550. The green figure here, that's the projected. We're now looking at finishing just a slightly little bit worse than we originally budgeted for. And then we can have a quick look at the KPIs. They show us the trends within the operation, and the big ones are sort of utilisation, where for the month we're at 40.4% against a budget of 44%. Might want to understand why, so we'll go to the resourcing and have a look there. And we can see that there's been a few people that have actually tacked on another 4 or 5 days leave on top of the standard shutdown that we did over Christmas. The multiplier is another key one that we're tracking. We're aiming or budgeting for 2.8. For the month it was only 2.36, and that's a reflection of that catch up with Bunyip Hills. Year to date we're at 2.81, so that's looking pretty good. And at this stage we really want to just get a perspective on how we're going against the plan and if there's any obvious problems. And the next thing I want to do is dive deeper and review the variances, look into the detail and determine why things are different and what impact they'll have on the future. So we can look at our actual against budget, and we can get right into the granular stuff here, the pens and pencils and everything. So once we've been through these summary and detailed reports of the P&L, we'll have an idea about how we're tracking against the plan, if there's anything there in the overheads that we need to factor into these outlying months, that's an ongoing expense we hadn't factored in, or if any of the differences are just timing related. And we can update our head count as well, because that will have an impact on our earning capacity. And we know that at the end of January, Debs Brindle, our planner, is actually leaving, and next month we're going to be starting with Lily Dennis in our interiors section. They've got a different salary and utilisation rate, and that affects the earning capacity. So once we've done that, we can now compare that against our detailed revenue pipeline forecast. When we look at this at a macro level, we can see that our full year forecast is set to come in at 4.9 million, which is only 80,000 under what we originally budgeted. Last month, that was 410,000. So we've actually improved our pipeline by about $330,000. And we look at that in terms of the capacity. We're expecting the rest of the year to be at 2.8, but this sales pipeline, the difference of 80,000, brings that back to 2.7. So we're looking at about a 96% realization rate. Now, at a macro level, that looks okay, but this process allows us to dig down a little deeper than that and look at the earning capacity per month. And we can see here through March and April that we're expecting to be earning beyond our 2.8. So that's a bit of a concern. We can do it, but everyone gets pushed really hard, and we've got this hole in May, June that needs filling. So really it's incumbent on us to try and manage this to fit our capacity without having to hire people, then fire people. This gives us a sense of how we're looking, but we really need to be across the detail and scrutinise it. We now have to go across and actually look at the detail of this secured forecast, the unsecured stuff and the marketing targets, get a level of comfort about how secure this pipeline is. So there you have it. Not a great month. We're slightly ahead of budget year to date. We're looking like we're going to finish up the full year right, round about where we expected, but there's a little bit of risk in our forecast. There's a few of those jobs that we're relying on to start, and we need to make sure that they do. It's really about all we can do for this month, and it's time to button it up and send that through to the directors in readiness for the next board meeting. So if you've enjoyed this video, hit the like and subscribe button, tell your friends about it. There's plenty more updates coming for Archi Democo in the future. And if you'd like any more information, jump on our website, www.custodianbackoffice.com, and there you'll find plenty of resources that'll help you get started with better financial management in your architecture practice. I'm David Dillon from Custodian Back Office. Thanks very much for watching.